Where you were, yeah, no diggity about the back it up. She's got class and style, street knowledge by the pound. She never act wild, very low key on the profile. Catching feelings is a no. Let me tell you how it goes. Curves the word, spins the verb. Love is it curves so free what you heard. Rolling with the fatness, you don't even.
How is this okay? No one's saying it. How is this somebody right here? So y'all gotta take it off. The churches. But I can research them. How is this okay? No, officer, how is this okay? Right, you're on video. Stand back, stand back, stand back, stand back, stand back, stand back. Hey guys, come stand back. I work out here, quick. I know. Hands on your back. How is this? Give me your hand. His hands on your back. I can't on your back. I can't on your back. Right. Give me your hand. I'm trying. Hands on your back.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, America, especially for black children, was made to dehumanize us. They force us to send our kids to their schools so they can indoctrinate them and completely miseducate them and hope they turn out enough of us ingrained with self-hatred. And to be honest, they do a pretty good job. It's no secret that black schools are designed to be a pipeline right to the prison. You can tell by how black students are disproportionately suspended and expelled and just overall disciplined. And it's no coincidence the one doing most of the indoctrination are white women. During slavery, black women had to raise everybody's kids. But as soon as we started talking about empowering ourselves, they made it mandatory that they raise everybody's kids. But then after they force us to go to the schools that they choose, the schools in our areas are underfunded, even though we're taxed just like everybody else. I went to Richmond public schools, and the books they gave us had people names from 10 years ago in them. Our civics books didn't even have the current president in them. Even the way the schools in our areas are built, they are built like prisons. And they teach a curriculum designed to destroy our kids' minds. And then they turn around and criminalize our kids and then treat them worse for petty crimes than they do grown-ass white men for mass shootings. But our children, especially our teenagers, are seen as grown-ass men and women. In Ohio, a 16-year-old brother, Julius Tate Jr., this young brother was shot and killed by an undercover SWAT agent. So let's see what led an undercover SWAT agent to shoot this 16-year-old kid.
Tonight, a sting operation turns deadly after an undercover officer says he was robbed at gunpoint and forced to open fire, killing a 16-year-old. Thank you for joining us tonight, everyone. I'm Yolanda Harris.
And I'm Jerry Revish. As 10 TV reporter Sierra Johnson tells us, police have seen an increase in online sales turning dangerous.
Yes, you can see this area of Champion and Hildreth is still blocked off and the scene is still quite active. Police are telling us 16-year-old Julius Tate Jr. is dead after he robbed an undercover officer at gunpoint. That officer is a member of SWAT and was part of an operation to catch attempted robberies during exchanges arranged online. Now take a look at this video we shot earlier. Police say the decoy officer and the suspect agreed to meet online and did so near Champion and Mount Vernon so one party could buy something from the other. Around 6:40 10:45, they met, and police say that's when that 16-year-old suspect proceeded to rob the undercover SWAT officer at gunpoint, at which time his backup opened fire. That teen was transported to Grant, where he was later pronounced dead. Columbus police say they've been running undercover operations like this one after receiving tips of similar meetings ending in robberies. CPD busted a similar robbery Wednesday night where they were forced to shoot someone. That person survived. Police say this type of a crime is on the rise.
I did speak with an officer who works out here, and in the past couple of weeks there have been 3 or 4 of these types, and of course, again, it's the same situation as Wednesday, but in a different part of town. We were in the South End at that time.
And the spokesperson for the police department says the officer involved in this particular situation is on administrative leave while this investigation is ongoing.
Now, apparently the Ohio police, the Southern Ohio Fugitive Task Force, started an online sting operation where they contact people on social media trying to buy stuff, and then they arrest them. Now, out of the 10 cases they've done so far, they've already killed 2 people. Now, with this young 16-year-old brother, Julius Tate Jr., the SWAT team hit him up on social media trying to buy something he was selling, really just trying to set this young brother up and trap him. So they set up a meeting with this young brother. Now, according to the police, when they met, this young brother pulled out a gun and then robbed one of the undercover agents. Now, in one story, the cop who shot him, Officer Eric Richard, saw the robbery taking place and immediately shot him. In another story, they said he had finished the robbery and he had shot him when he was leaving. However, there were witnesses and they have a completely different story than the cops. Now, according to witnesses, this young brother, Julius Tate Jr., never had a gun. And after they shot him, they went in his house and searched it and then found the gun. Now, not only did they clear the cops of all charges, they decided to charge a 16-year-old girlfriend, Masonique Saunders, with aggravated robbery and murder.
Nearly a week after Columbus police shot and killed a 16-year-old boy after they say he held them at gunpoint and robbed them during an undercover sting. Police have arrested his 16-year-old girlfriend and charged her with aggravated robbery and murder. Good evening. I'm Yolanda Harris.
And I'm Jerry Revish. Thanks for joining us at 11 tonight. 10 TV's Branch Somerville explains the state law that makes this possible.
Task force officers with the Southern Ohio Fugitive Apprehension Strike Team have arrested Masonique Saunders for murder. She's the 16-year-old girlfriend of 16-year-old Julius Tate, who was shot and killed by Columbus police back on December 7th. Police say SWAT officers were in the area of North Champion Avenue and Mount Vernon Avenue conducting an operation in response to reports of robberies of people who had used social media to buy and sell items. According to police, a SWAT officer posed as a potential customer and met with Tate to finalize the exchange. That's when police say Tate pointed a gun at the officer and robbed him. That's when another officer fired at Tate, injuring him. He was taken to Grant Medical Center, where he died. According to Ohio Revised Code 2903.02, no person shall cause the death of another as a proximate result of the offender's committing or attempting to commit an offense of violence that is a felony of the first or second degree. Police believe Saunders played a role in the commission of the felony robbery that resulted in Tate's death. The attorney representing Saunders said he did not want to comment on the case because he didn't know the specifics of the allegations. He says Saunders is due in court Friday morning at 9.
Now, the police don't know if this young girl knew what was going on, if she knew he was robbing them. Hell, I don't even know if he was robbing them. But the police said they believe she played a part in it. Now, we do know she didn't have a gun, and she definitely didn't pull the trigger. But they still charge this young 16-year-old girl, Masonique Saunders, with murder. Without any proof, they say she may have been in on a string of robberies. They don't even have proof this young brother Julius Tate was in on a string of robberies. They're the ones that already killed somebody in the same situation. Of course, it's no surprise they were going to justify themselves for murder, but then they turn around and pin the murder on a 16-year-old girl.
New at 11, a 16-year-old girl is now charged with murder in the death of a teen who was shot and killed by Columbus police. Good evening, everyone. I'm Colleen Marshall.
And I'm Mike Jackson. NBC4's Sean Lanier spoke with police tonight. He is live outside of juvenile court with more on why that girl is being charged.
A Columbus sergeant told me that the reason why 16-year-old Masonique Saunders faces that charge of murders because they believe that she was involved with the scheme to rob people along with Julius Tate Jr. And because Tate Jr.'s death happened during an aggravated robbery, which is a felony, they can charge her with his death. Now, all of this comes after Columbus police and the attorney representing Tate Jr.'s family gave us very different explanations on what happened that night. Columbus attorney Byron Potts says he received a sworn affidavit from an eyewitness who claims police brought an unarmed Julius Tate Jr. out of a house near the intersection of Mount Vernon and Champion Avenues, shot him, and then went back into the house to retrieve a gun. Police say that's not true. They say Columbus SWAT officers were conducting an operation because there were reports of someone using social media to arrange meetings to sell things, then robbing the buyer at gunpoint. A SWAT officer posing as a potential buyer set up a meeting with the suspect who turned out to be Tate Jr. Police say he pointed his gun at the decoy officer and robbed him, and that's when a cover officer shot and killed Tate Jr. Police say a gun like this was recovered from the scene, a gun they say Tate Jr. had. Potts says he will continue collecting statements and evidence as the family of Tate Jr. considers a wrongful death lawsuit against the city of Columbus. And 60-year-old Saunders is expected in juvenile court tomorrow.
Now, Masonique Saunders, this young 16-year-old girl who they want to try as an adult, they have no problem moving our kids up to the adult level then. Meanwhile, they'll let a 30-year-old white man off with rape because he's young and doesn't know any better. But now this 16-year-old girl could spend the rest of her life in jail because the police killed a kid, her boyfriend. Then to criminalize her even more, they brought up her past. Not that her past could be but so long, but they said she got a criminal record just because she got in fights at school. They called this young girl being suspended a criminal record. But this is the system that we keep praying that accepts us and welcomes us. We protest and march to be a part of this system in hopes that maybe one day they'll protect us. But banging your head against the same spot in the wall for hundreds of years is not helpful and it's not healthy. We won't have a fair criminal system until we have our own criminal system where we can create and enforce our own rules. But as long as we're subject to somebody else's laws and rules and regulations, then we're going to be subject to their punishments. Hundreds of years of our blood being shed should be enough for us to do what we got to do. So many of our elderly, so many of our children. Nobody is going to protect us but us because at the end of the day, we're all we got.
A high school referee in New Jersey made this wrestler choose between his hair or his sport. And this video taken on Wednesday of the wrestler's choice to avoid forfeit has gone viral. BUNA regional high school student Andrew Johnson is seen stoically submitting to an impromptu cutting of his dreadlocks as fellow students walk up to him with encouraging gestures that seem to say, "You've got this," and he sure did. During the match, he pins his opponent and wins. He appears eager to get away from the referee during that unusually short raising of the arm to show victory. We were sent the rules of the match that state, hair shall not extend below the top of a shirt collar, hair shall not extend below earlobe level, hair shall not extend below the eyebrows. We needed to know more from school officials here in Atlantic County between Philadelphia and Atlantic City. This comes from a letter from the school. The student athlete made the decision to cut his hair. At that moment, to avoid forfeiture, no school district staff member influenced the student to make this decision. The New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association confirmed it is investigating. A statement released to us from the organization includes this: Given the degree of attention being focused on this matter, the NJSIAA will recommend to chapter officials that the referee in question not be assigned to any event until this matter has been reviewed more thoroughly. A more thorough investigation is eagerly awaited by many residents around here. And Johnson himself appears to be keeping a low profile with that win that came with this cruel cut.
So let's talk about discrimination, okay? So if anybody knows me or if you followed me for a long time, you know that I have freeform locks. I've been having freeform locks for about, what, 3, almost 4 years, and I think they're fucking beautiful, square and all. And, okay, I've been working at Ross. I've been working at Ross for, about almost 6 months. Been doing pretty great at my job, got a raise and everything. Pretty great place. Well, pretty great work ethic on my part. So I'm getting married soon, like around the end of this month, and I decided to play with my hair to see if there was something I could do to make it curlier. Regular Bantu knots don't really curl my hair right, so I tried this other method, and being that my hair is thick, they still came out looking like Bantu knots. Now mind you, I went to work last week. Everything was cool. I wore it like this, and it was all easy peasy, lemon squeezy. No one had nothing to say. All the black people that came into my job, which is very rare in Denver, all the black people that came to my job were complimenting it, say how, you know, it's our culture. And you know what? I believe that. I believe that my hair is able to curl itself like this naturally, and I don't have to do any fucking thing to it. It's a beautiful fucking thing. So my district manager, I don't know if he's my district manager, but he's over my store manager, and he came in one night and I looked just like this, like perfect, fucking perfect, down to the T, dress code, everything. And he made it a point to say that he had a problem with my hairstyle and he needed me to change it. So in my mind, I'm just like, by laws and discrimination laws that you have posted all over the wall, you technically can't tell me to do that, because I mean, there's nothing wrong with my hair. It's my hair. It's my natural hair color, and my hair does what the fuck it does. I just want to have it curled, and it's a whole lot more presentable than putting rollers in my head and just coming to work. So I don't understand. So I had the weekend off, and I come back today, old Monday, and the first thing my manager asked me was just like, so can you like straighten out, you know, can you take your hair down? And I'm like, I really don't want to, and I don't really see why I have to, but I have to take it down. I have to fucking take it down for tomorrow so I can take a picture, full dress, so I can show my manager that I am in full dress code, and my hair has nothing to do with my dress code. Like, that's, I read these rules every day just for an engagement at work as a part of my job description, and nothing in the book says anything about my hair. And you know what, even though I'm really fucking hurt about that, like I'm hurt about it, but I'm not surprised. I'm hurt, but I'm not surprised. There's so many people of different races and creed that work here, and they're able to wear their hijabs, and they're able to wear everything else, and I do something as simply natural as this, and it's a problem, and I could technically lose my job for it if I don't comply with the rules. But you know what, that's fine. That's fine, because I actually want to just continue to wear it that way, and I feel like I have to take a piece of myself away just because I have to put it down and have it present, quote unquote, presentable for a picture, so I can show some random ass white man that I'm following the bylaws. So the point of this message is just to say, I don't care who you are, but especially if you are a person of color, whether you wear a fro or you wear a wig or your hair is straight or you have locks, no matter what, don't ever let anybody make you feel like your hair is inferior or your hair is just, or that you're not a person because of what you naturally do because of your DNA. That's bullshit. Today is still a beautiful day, and today is still going to be one of the best days that I have had throughout my entire life. I will never let anything this simple break me. But it is important for girls and people of color to know that you are beautiful, even if people don't accept what isn't, quote unquote, the fucking norm.
A donut shop brawl caught on camera. The video posted on social media drawing anger and concern. KISD school officials say the incident happened Thursday at the Best Donuts across the street from Ellison High School. It was former EHS student Kadarius Green who caught it all.
Like, she was calling like the kid at their name, like racial names, like the N-word and stuff, and it started from there, and it just kept on going, and then it escalated to that. He said he was going to get his sisters. He came back and he got his sisters, and it just went from there.
You can see the now former student jumping up onto the counter and watching as two of his adult family members jump over the counter and assault the employee.
An Ellison student is the one who jumped up on the counter in the video with his shirt off and was jumping up and down on the counter. But the people who jumped over the counter and were involved in the assault are not students. They're not connected with the Ellison High School at all.
Killeen ISD spokesperson Terry Abbott says Killeen PD is now investigating.
This video, shows some adults behaving very badly, and they ought to get prosecuted for it.
But there's more. Witnesses sent Fox 44 this video defending the teen and his family's actions, saying it shows the employee hitting the teen first and throwing racial slurs. We've still not yet been able to confirm what started the fight.
You'll remember this video. It went viral. Now the Killeen Donut Shop employee is speaking out, wanting to clear the air about what she says really happened. Tonight, Fox 44's Noelle Mendoza reports what the donut shop owner is saying.
That's right. The shop's owner tells me 3 years ago, several teens ended up breaking tables and counters. They say they've been in the donut business for 15 years. And the fights began when they moved their shop across the street from Ellison High School. We must warn you, some of the images and language in this report is disturbing.
I kind of made the first threat. I was like, bro, you need to get out because I'm about to reach across this counter.
Those words leading to this. Two shocking videos of a fight at the Best Donuts shop in Killeen.
Basically, he came in, I'm trying to handle other customers, and then he interrupts me while I'm helping somebody. So I'm thinking he's gonna make it quick, hey, what do you want? And then I felt like he was trying to be smart, or he thought he was slick, because he had me going back and forth, I don't know, he was being funny. And then so I finally gave him his stuff, and I was like, all right, now get out.
The teenager didn't leave, and that's when she says things got physical.
So then I jump across the counter, and then I strike him first.
A few minutes later, this.
I didn't know he was getting his sisters. I thought he was just talking whatever trash he was talking in here. Then his sisters come in, and they're like, whatever, jump across this counter.
During the altercation, the 19-year-old employee confirms she did say racial slurs.
I was saying the N-word, not with a hard ER. I wasn't saying it in a derogatory way, I was saying it how it's said amongst the community. I'm not racist. I have black nieces, cousins, brothers-in-laws. I grew up around a lot of black people, so those are my people. I don't have a problem with them.
She says next time she knows she needs to keep her cool.
Please respect my dad's business. That's all I ask for, is respect my dad's business. Because I grew up in here, he's owned 3 different shops within 15 years, and we've never had any of these type of issues until we moved to Killeen.
The employee also tells me this is not the first time teens from the high school have picked a fight with her. She knows that they think she has an attitude, when in reality, she loves kids and they make her day.
I don't know.
You said he's being detained because he's being jittery? That's what I heard. He said he's being detained. Him, his father, and his brother live here. No, his father is at work. He has a job.
You cannot take
Sir,
my phone.
wait.
Hey, Drew, chill.
Whoa.
Calm down.
Yo, what are you doing right now? She didn't do anything. Why are you doing that? What did she do? What did she do? You snatched her phone from her. That is her personal property. It's all on video. And you guys have absolutely no right to tell me that I can't record this. I did nothing wrong. You searched me. I had nothing. So I am allowed to record a video. You snatched my sister's phone out of her hand and it's on video. This is my sister's personal property.
It's evidence.
Ow! I didn't do anything, sir. I did nothing, sir.
Okay, I just literally want a medium french fries and from the French fries? Yes, french fries. We don't sell french fries. You know, your Burger King is all french fries? You're in Burger King? This is Taco Bell. See? Okay, well, Taco Bell, literally, I've never been able to not get an order in. Oh, sorry. Welcome to Taco Bell. We are here today. Tell me what french fry orders you have. We don't have french fries. No, not french fries. Anything along the side, anything that's helpful, just tell me. We don't sell french fries. This is Taco Bell. I'm not asking you for french fries. I'm literally asking you. Tell me what you guys. That's the menu. Go ahead with the menu. You want to be in like this to me? This is racism and it's
No, it's not, girl.
No, it is.
They got tacos and burritos.
Oh, I'm so happy because you have 4 eyes and like literally
Yeah, and you got 0 eyes. Look at the menu.
You're ignorant as f***.
Yeah, why
No, I'm not. Like literally, I work
are.
with people who are challenged every day, and I never
Would you go to Burger King and order tilapia or a taco? No, you wouldn't.
I
That's their
didn't.
menu.
I just ordered French fries. Literally.
They don't have
Like,
French
did you
fries.
see this?
They don't have French fries.
I know, but it's fucking Burger King. I never come here.
This is Burger King.
That's not the point, but what I'm
What is
asking for, I asked her at the window. I asked her at the window,
girl.
do you sell French fries? She said nothing to me. Nothing. She just looked at me like, I was a piece of shit. I'm like, okay, I'll go around.
Let's try to make the day better. Okay? Let's try to turn this around. Okay, let's stop. Let's try to turn this around. I have the headset.
I don't have problems in my life, really. I don't.
Why would you like? What would you like? We have burritos, we have tacos.
I would like, literally, someone to treat me like a human being.
That's what I'm doing right now.
You know, I'm happy here, so I'm leaving.
Okay, have a good night. Have a good night.
What are you fucking doing here? You telling me what to do? I belong here. You don't. Fuck off. Hold on. What's that supposed to mean? What I just said. What's that supposed to mean? He's telling me what to do. No, I heard your words. You said. You heard what I said. I belong here. No, listen to me. I'm talking to you. I'm trying to get served. It's got nothing to do with you. Fucking go away. It's got nothing to do with you at all. I'll knock your ass out.
Exactly. The man's doing his job. It's not about where he comes from.
Listen.
Yeah? Don't start on me because I was born here, right? Don't serve him. Do you know what?
He fucking rings the bell.
So what? Doesn't matter. You're using abusive language throughout the whole shop. There's kids in this shop and you're swearing like mad. Who wants to serve you?
Huh?
That's exactly it.
I come here every night. And
So what? You're walking around swearing. Who wants to serve you? Damn cheek. How about where are you from? No, I don't serve him. This is out of order. Damn cheek. Face the man coming to be cussing people and telling about...
I'm not going to serve you.
No.
Fuck you. Fuck your shop. Fuck the lot.
Good. Well done, guys.
Fucking wankers. This is what a fucking country's in the state it's in.
That's right. Sort it out, MP. Can I be served now, please? Sorry, I'll film this.
Who are you following and for what?
Because you're part of South Miami.
Okay, I don't know what your part of South Miami means. When I asked you, am I on your property, do you want me to leave? Okay, so what are you out here saying then? What are you out here bothering me for? Did I bother you?
You know what? You're in it. And I'm going to report you.
Go ahead.
Wherever you are, I am going to report you.
Go ahead. What are you going to report? That someone asked you nicely if they should leave your property and you literally sat here and vocalized that it's not your property, so you're harassing someone for no reason?
My property.
Yeah, this is harassment, lady. If this isn't your property and you're coming out here sticking... I'll fucking put you... Oh my God! You want to fucking put your hands on me? You want to grab at me? Get the hell away from me. That's literally on camera. You grabbing at me.
Just hit
me. Yeah, it's on camera. You grabbing at me. Grabbing my camera again and I'll hit you again.
You just hit
Move,
me.
Mojito.
You just hit me.
Now I'm walking the fuck away.
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, I don't know why a lot of us are afraid of the angry black man or black woman myth. To be honest with you, I am angry. When you look around and see what's going on, how could you not be? I wish more of us would embrace it. But we want to forgive faster than we can even grieve and recover. Historically, they have tortured our children, our babies. They've done all kind of things on kids right out of the womb. And really, when we first started to see a pattern of them hurting our children, it should have ended right then. But the fact that hundreds of years later, we still look for every excuse to justify it ourselves. We still get caught up in the gender wars and blame each other for recent things that white supremacy engineered to stop us, to break up our families. When really our children being shot down on the street like animals should be enough reason to put aside whatever differences we have right now. At least until we can get out of a white supremacy system. We too busy debating the symptoms of racism and white supremacy instead of addressing the root cause of it. We're not the only ones that have issues, but we're the only ones that can't afford it. We can't afford to let whatever issues us black men and women have with each other affect our parenting. No other group has faced the same situation that we have faced, and we continue to face. In America, ever since 1667, they passed laws making it illegal for us to fight back. They started passing the first laws making it illegal for us to have weapons. It didn't matter if you were free, if you were a Negro, you couldn't have a weapon. Hell, by 1682, if we did anything to white people, it was punishable by death. You couldn't even hit them back if they hit you, let alone commit a crime against them. God forbid if you actually kill a white man, they'll make you a public display. But we still act surprised about the culture that's been instilled in America. In Ohio, a 13-year-old kid who was in the 8th grade, a young brother named Tyree King. This young brother had an empty BB gun that didn't work, but he ended up getting shot 3 times, including once in the head by the police. So let's see how another young black kid with a BB gun ended up getting shot by the police.
An Ohio police officer is on administrative leave this morning after shooting and killing a teenager who allegedly pulled out a BB gun. Crowds gathered last night in Columbus to remember Tyree King. The 13-year-old was killed on Wednesday. Michelle Miller is here with how attorneys for the victim's family are now responding. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning. Police say Tyree King was one of 3 people stopped Wednesday evening after 911 calls revealed a man was threatened with a gun and robbed of $10. When officers recovered from the scene was a BB gun with a laser.
A 911 call detailed the drama, an armed robbery on Wednesday night.
This man just had a gun on this white dude on the street.
According to authorities, after a short chase, a responding officer opened fire on one of the suspects when he reached for a gun. Today, police confirmed that 13-year-old Tyree King was shot at the scene and killed, and that weapon authorities recovered was a BB gun similar to this one, bearing close resemblance to real service weapons used by Columbus police.
Our officers carry a gun that looks practically identical to this weapon.
Police say this photo shows a replica of the BB gun Tyree King was allegedly carrying on Wednesday when Columbus police officer Brian Mason shot and killed him.
They're all right there running back through the alley. He's shooting them. Oh my God!
Now, 718 for that shot fired. Start medic, suspect down.
A second suspect confirmed to local media that King was involved with the robbery. The officer involved, who is white, has been identified as Brian Mason, a 9-year veteran on the force. He was cleared of wrongdoing in another fatal shooting from 2012.
He does have a history of following policy. That's why he was out there, because he still has that great record. This is not something that we're going to take lightly with regard to his future.
Tyree's family attorneys say accounts from witnesses differ from the police and are calling for an independent investigation.
We're told that he wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't looking for trouble.
According to the family, Tyree was a regular, typical 13-year-old. He was always laughing, always smiling. And instead of, planning for a football game this weekend, the family's planning for a funeral.
According to the Washington Post, since the beginning of 2015, there have been at least 60 deadly shootings by police of people holding toy guns.
A 13-year-old is dead in the city of Columbus because of our obsession with guns and violence.
Columbus City officials are urging for calm during the investigation into Tyree's death. In 2014, 12-year-old Tamir Rice was holding a pellet gun in a Cleveland park when he was shot and killed by a police officer.
We don't have enough facts to know anything about how this relates to any other shooting, including Tamir Rice's. That's why we do an investigation.
Why is it that a 13-year-old would have nearly an exact replica of a police firearm?
Columbus officials say they have reached out to community leaders, urging for calm and patience while the investigation continues. Meantime, King's family has retained a law firm to conduct a separate probe.
And it's about actually making sure that we have transparency in these investigations and that we find out the truth.
Columbus police were not wearing body cameras and are not expected to until next year. Mason is a 9-year police veteran and was reportedly cleared of any wrongdoing after shooting and killing an armed suspect back in 2012. A grand jury will determine if any criminal charges should be filed following Wednesday's incident.
So according to the police, this young brother Tyree King and another young brother was robbing this white dude for $10. And then when the police officer Brian Mason showed up, they said this young brother Tyree King and the other young brother fit the description. So according to the police, when they went to go arrest them, they took off running. And you can hear the 911 calls kind of narrating the situation. But this is where the story starts to get kind of confusing. When this young 13-year-old brother Tyree King ran into the alley, the cop claimed he saw what looked like a gun in his waistband. Now, the cop claimed he told him to get down, but he didn't comply. And we know it's always been illegal for a nigga not to comply. But then the cop claimed he saw him tugging on the gun a few times like he couldn't get it out of his waistband. But then he said he pulled the gun out and he saw a laser and he thought he was going to get shot, so he feared for his life. So, of course, he had no other choice but to open fire on this 13-year-old kid. He hit him 3 times, including once in the head. The police chief, Kim Jacobs, said the gun practically looked identical to the cop's gun. I didn't know cops in Ohio had lasers on their gun. But she said the gun looked identical, so of course the shooting is justified.
Nearly 2 months after a Columbus police officer shot and killed a 13-year-old boy, the Franklin County coroner's now released the complete autopsy report of Tyree King. Good evening. Thank you for joining us at 5. I'm Mike Jackson.
And I'm Ellie Merritt. That report reveals that King was shot 3 times in the left side, and his official manner of death is being called a homicide. NBC4's Ted Hart obtained the entire report today. He is live at the coroner's office tonight with our continuing coverage. Ted?
Well, and Ellie, the coroner's autopsy and report is really just part of one piece of the overall investigation into the officer-involved shooting death of Tyree King. And County Prosecutor Ron O'Brien said today that he expects to have the complete investigative file delivered to his office from the Columbus Police Critical Incident Response Team in about 2 weeks. Police say 13-year-old Tyree King was shot by police officer Brian Mason during a foot chase out of an armed robbery. Investigators say King pulled a gun from his waistband. The gun turned out to be a very real-looking BB gun. The coroner's autopsy report says King was shot 3 times, the left side of his head, the upper left chest, and the upper left side of the abdomen. The trajectory of all 3 bullets was from left to right. Dr. Francisco Diaz, a medical examiner in Michigan hired by the King family to do an independent review, had earlier concluded it is more likely than not that Tyre King was in the process of running away from the shooter when he suffered all 3 gunshot wounds. The county coroner's report makes no such conclusions. The toxicology report in the autopsy indicates no sign of drugs or alcohol. The shooting of Tyre King has sparked protests and calls for independent investigations of police-involved shootings, and became a political issue in the race for Franklin County prosecutor. Tammy Fournier-Alzada is with the People's Justice Project.
No cry for justice or the demand for justice and equal public safety, equal treatment when something happens in a community and to one of our citizens. It shouldn't be that we have to do these things to get fair or equal justice.
Meanwhile, the investigation into the officer-involved shooting of Henry Green in South Linden last summer has been completed, delivered to the prosecutor's office, but it has not yet been presented to the grand jury. And coming up at 6, I'll explain why. Live at the county coroner's office, Ted Hart, NBC4.
Thank you, Ted. Last Friday, civil rights activists met outside the Franklin County Courthouse calling for an independent prosecutor to handle the case of Tyre King and Henry Green. Both lost their lives after being shot by Columbus police earlier this year. Family members want Franklin County Prosecutor Ron O'Brien to step aside, but O'Brien says that decision is up to the mayor, safety director, or police chief.
Now, with this 13-year-old kid, they acted like he was a 31-year-old man. They released his toxicology report. They couldn't really find the history because he was 13 years old. But the police released his autopsy, and the coroner said everything checked out. And of course, they released the parts that backed up their story. However, the family actually got the body back, and they were able to do their own autopsy. And the independent autopsy said it looked like he was actually running away. Now, it turns out this gun with the laser on it ended up being a broken BB gun with no bullets in it. And the police said he pulled the gun, but why would you pull a broken BB gun with no bullets in it? And the witnesses that called 911 themselves didn't back up the cop's story. Even on the 911 calls, you can hear they were shocked when they shot him. It sounded like it was unexpected. But at some point, we're going to realize we have to expect it. We don't really have a choice. We can pray that things change, but that never really helped. This young brother holding a weapon on a white man has been punishable by death since the late 1600s, early 1700s, even if it's just $10. Countless young brothers have died for less, and probably in some unimaginable ways. And still today, it's no surprise that this cop, Brian Mason, ended up getting cleared on all charges.
Franklin County grand jury decided today not to indict Columbus police officer Brian Mason, who shot and killed 13-year-old Tyre King in September. Mason was responding to an armed robbery call and approached King and 2 other young men who all took off running. And that's when they say King pulled a gun from his waistband.
You know, we're frustrated, but we're not surprised at all. You know, we knew from the beginning when the Columbus police were allowed to take part in this investigation that there was not going to be transparency and truth.
After hearing the evidence, they found the shooting to be justified and did not proceed to the second level to determine what charges should be filed because the shooting was justified under the 4th Amendment.
O'Brien says the grand jury found the shooting to be justified, and late tonight, Mayor Andy Ginther released a statement calling for the grand jury proceedings to be unsealed and made available to the public. Today marks 2 years since a 13-year-old boy was shot and killed by a Columbus police officer. Now his family is filing a wrongful death lawsuit against the officer, the city of Columbus, and police chief Kim Jacobs. The lawsuit challenges the police account, citing witnesses who say Officer Brian Mason used a racial slur after that shooting. Mason said the teen tried to pull a realistic-looking toy gun from his waistband and ignored police commands to stop. Officer Mason was not charged.
So apparently the 4th Amendment justified this cop shooting this 13-year-old kid, and they treated this 13-year-old like a grown man. And they babied this grown man who was a 32-year-old cop, and they went out of their way to protect him. Meanwhile, Officer Brian Mason has been a cop for 9 years, and he has been involved in 4 other shootings, including 1 death, including at least 50 complaints from excessive force to inappropriate language. And not only have they cleared this cop every single time, they've actually honored him time and time again. It's like every time he's involved in a shooting, not only does he get a paid vacation, but he comes back and gets an award. And most of his complaints come from black people. There were witnesses that heard him use racial slurs after he killed this young 13-year-old brother, Tyre King. But there's no consequences for killing black children. He's back on the same force, just patrolling a different part of the city. Not to mention when he killed this young brother, Tyre King, he was undercover. But it's the same old story. When it comes to a black kid that's shot, they ask questions like, why did you have a BB gun? Instead of why did a trained cop hop out with a real one shooting? But as long as another group can control the relationship that we have with our own children, if they really want, they can come and take them away whenever they please. And they have a whole government backing them. Until we have some kind of system, army, a government backing us, then we're going to continue to be subject to their laws, their rules, and their punishments. When we decide we've had enough and we do what we got to do to change things, then things will change. But that won't happen until we realize that we're all we got.
But we're going to begin with what is either one of the most brutal or one of the most honest descriptions by any U.S. leader of American preeminence in the world. National Security Advisor John Bolton laid out the U.S. strategy for Africa, and it is, if nothing else, shockingly direct. He put African nations on notice that they must pick sides, and the side to pick is the U.S. Then he laid into China and laid into Russia.
Across the continent, Russia advances its political and economic relationships with little regard to the rule of law or accountable and transparent governance. It continues to sell arms and energy in exchange for votes at the United Nations. China uses bribes, opaque agreements, and the strategic use of debt to hold states in Africa captive to Beijing's wishes and demands.
There you go. With more now on what the Bolton speech with reaction from Russia and China is or says, here is RT's Murad Gazdiev.
They are deliberately and aggressively targeting their investments in the region to gain a competitive advantage over the United States. Should this occur, the balance of power in the Horn of Africa, astride major arteries of maritime trade between Europe, the Middle East, and South Asia, would shift in favor of China.
National Security Advisor John Bolton sounding a new alarm on China and Russia's quiet but massive investments encroaching on the African continent. As those countries plant their economic flags across the region, Bolton put a number on it, saying between 2016 and 2017, China plowed $6.4 billion into Africa. Russia, for its part, is pushing its own arms and energy on the continent as it then extracts rare earth minerals and other natural resources. Under Bolton's new Prosper Africa strategy, the U.S. will take on those threats by reinforcing economic ties with Africa.
Disregarding that it reads more like a declaration of war than a strategy. This plan is for the good of Africa, promises John Bolton. This coming from a guy whose boss, Trump, infamously referred to several African nations as something that I can't mention on air.
The predatory practices pursued by China and Russia stunt economic growth in Africa, threaten the financial independence of African nations, and pose a significant threat to U.S. national security interests.
It's interesting logic. So when China or Russia or someone else you don't like lends an African nation money, that's debt colonialism, almost financial slavery. When America does it, it's investment for Africa's own good. Worth mentioning is that Russia's trade with the continent pales into insignificance when compared to the US or China. Look at this rail line, this highway, hydropower station, all built with Chinese investment. Beijing is raising entire cities with more to come.
China is willing to provide another $60 billion in support of Africa through government assistance, investment, and financing of financial institutions and enterprises.
The phrase, actions speak louder than words, is entirely applicable here. The Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, has visited Africa 9 times during his tenure. Trump once sent his wife. But what the United States might lack in tact, it more than makes up with guns. American troops are stationed in 50 out of 54 African nations. It has 34 military sites, thousands and thousands of soldiers across the entire continent, and a long history of military interventions. China has 1 base in Djibouti. Russia has none. American troops are there for Africans' own good, Washington would say. Speaking of which, you remember the whole Chinese and Russian money, bad American money, good thing? Well, it turns out not so much.
Our new foreign assistance strategy will ensure that all U.S. foreign aid in every corner of the globe advances U.S. interest. Countries that repeatedly vote against the United States in international forums or take actions counter to U.S. interest should not receive generous American foreign aid.
John Bolton, ladies and gentlemen, man who unveiled America's new Africa plan. So much for financial independence. Africans, good luck.
Calling the cops for trying to cash a check. A man says he was racially profiled at a local bank when they refused to cash his paycheck.
Yeah, I talked to him. He tells me he nearly got arrested, all for trying to cash that paycheck. Tonight, he is telling his story only to us in hopes others don't have to go through the same humiliation.
It was highly embarrassing. Highly embarrassing.
What was supposed to be a quick trip to the bank for Paul McCown's turned into what he calls a nightmare. All because he tried to cash his paycheck.
I got a new job. I worked there for about 3 weeks.
It was the first check from the new job. McCown says he went to this Huntington branch on Biddulph Avenue in Brooklyn on December 1st to cash it.
She says you need 2 forms of ID. I said, okay, because I'm not a client at Huntington.
McCown says he provided both his license and social security card. He also gave his fingerprint, which is bank policy. Then he says multiple tellers started challenging the transaction.
They tried to call my employer numerous times. He never picked up the phone.
The paycheck for roughly $1,000 was handed back to McCown's. Tellers said they wouldn't cash it, so he left.
I get in my truck. And, of course, you know, the squad car pulled in front of me. He said, get out the car.
Instead of just letting McCown's go on his way, the teller calls Brooklyn police on him.
He's trying to cash a check, and the check is fraudulent. It does not match our records.
Does he know you called 911?
No.
But the person who made that phone call, that manager, that teller, whoever made that phone call, I feel as though that they were judging.
Minutes after being handcuffed and put in the back of a cop car, police confirmed the check is real. McCown says he believes bank employees profiled him.
My employer said, yes, he works for me. He just started, and yes, my payroll company does pay him that much.
McCown says he cashed that check the next day at another Huntington location with no problems. We reached out to the bank. They tell us there's increased fraud in Brooklyn with 11 cases at this branch in just the last few months. A rep says the tellers were being hyper-vigilant. Brooklyn police tell Cleveland 19 there was no fraud with McCown's case.
What response are you hoping to get from them?
I mainly want them, I want an apology, a sincere apology.
Huntington tells me they did reach out to McCown's, but they say he's not returning their calls. They say they should have confirmed with McCown's employers before calling police. McCown says he wants the bank to change their protocol for non-customers and hopes no one else is treated the way he says he was.
It hurts. It really hurts.
A Huntington rep sent me this statement saying in part, quote, "We accept responsibility for contacting the police as well as our own interactions with Mr. McCown's. Anyone who walks into a Huntington branch should feel welcomed. Regrettably, that did not occur in this instance, and we are very sorry." Huntington says they're working on policy changes and extra education for employees at that branch.
So for this week's What Would You Do, we are talking about the struggle of banking while black. Did y'all see the story of Trish Doolin, a black woman who's an architect? Just moved to the Seattle area, Kirkland, and she went into Key Bank to cash her paycheck. And in the process, she was told that her funds would be held. And she didn't even understand that part, but it was just like, okay, well, that's just what it's gonna be, I'll leave. She leaves, and the bank calls her back and says there's a problem with her check. She needs to come back and verify some things. She said that she came back to the bank. By the time she got into the cubicle with a bank teller, they had her job pulled up on the computer screen, her company's website pulled up. And they started asking her questions, like about how long she'd worked at the company. Basically said there was an issue. They called HR at her job to verify whether she was an actual employee, and no one answered. And so she still wasn't able to correctly deposit her funds. She called back to the bank later, and they told her that this is what happens when your bank account hasn't been open for 30 days. Hers had been open for 29. The woman eventually let her deposit the funds since she was only a day short. But she also told the woman, I assure you that the man that you worked with was not racist, and I'm sorry that you're having a bad day, you should go get a drink or something. And that's when Trish pretty much lost it and posted her debacle on Facebook. So what do you all think about that situation, and what would you have done?
How you doing?
Good. Do you know this lady back in the accident, or?
I don't answer questions.
Okay, well, have a nice day, sir.
All right, thank you.
Who was the gentleman you were just standing here?
I don't answer questions.
Is there a reason why?
I don't answer questions.
Do you have a nice day?
You too.
You won't explain whose car carrier is it?
I don't answer questions, sir.
Okay.
What are we filming here for?
No, I don't answer questions.
Okay. What's your name again?
Oh, I don't answer questions.
All right. You have a good day.
Thanks.
Number?
I don't answer questions.
Okay, is there anybody here that can answer questions?
Don't answer questions.
Okay. I'm not sure how to respond to that, sir.
Jerry, do what they say. Jerry, do what they say. Jerry, do what they say. Jerry. 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 You're gonna get hurt, Jerry, if you don't stop. Help! You're gonna get a charge, Jerry. Stop it. Stop, Jerry. Jerry, you're gonna get in trouble. Jerry, they're gonna hurt you. Jerry. Jerry, don't do it. Jerry, don't do it.
No. Put the rock down. Put it down. Put it down. Missed. Hey, put it down. Missed it down. I got her left. Go right. My taser's already down. That's all right.
After he falls over, he gets up and is like, I'm calling the cops. And everyone in the gym is just like, whoa, what's going on? Like, what is he? We thought he was joking.
Story everybody's talking about, most viewed story of the day on fox5dc.com. A Virginia man calls the police after he gets fouled during a pickup basketball game.
Yeah, this happened at an LA Fitness in Sterling. Tonight, we're hearing from a man who was part of that game gone wrong. Fox 5's Lindsay Watts has the story.
This is the hardest foul in America, bro. What you guys say, bro? You calling the cops if you get fouled, Berto? You calling the cops if you get fouled? You calling the cops if you get fouled?
Inside this LA Fitness, a basketball game ended up being reffed by Loudoun County Sheriff's deputies.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it.
This man was there for it, and first to tell the world on Twitter Monday night. He says this guy called authorities on this guy.
No punches were thrown, nothing. It wasn't malicious, no hits to the face or anything like that.
He didn't want to use his name, but described what he witnessed. If you know basketball, he says the move in question was a pick.
Basically, you just stay here and maintain your ground. And he just ran up. He ran into him. He might not have seen him because no one told him the pick was coming. So he just ran into him, fell down kind of hard. I mean, that's basketball. You know, that's nothing you would call the police about. You know, his hands are, you know, down here.
The guy who fell had the gym receptionist call for help.
Sheriff's office.
Hi, yes, I'm calling from LA Fitness at the Dulles Town Center, and a member got assaulted.
Based on this call,
does the victim need an ambulance, anything like that?
No.
Deputies thought they were responding to something more serious. Another player posted this video.
Have you ever been called for a basketball foul before? No. This your first time?
That's my first basketball foul.
You were coming for a basketball foul?
Not for that, no. I just heard it was a fight.
Oh, okay.
But I'm like, all right.
Man, they called you for a foul, man.
The sheriff's office says in the end, neither man involved wanted to file a formal report. Perhaps most bizarre about all this, our witness says that after deputies left, both men went back on the court to finish the game.
Everyone kept playing. That's what's so bizarre about the whole situation. It's like, why did it have to be that serious?
He says he doesn't believe there was some bigger issue behind what happened.
Why, PB?
You can tell it was strictly basketball. There was no racial undertones or anything like that.
And lastly, he says even if there had been real referees at the game,
there would have been no call. Even in the NBA as it is now, because people think, you know, a lot of fouls and stuff are called now, it would not have been a foul. It would just, everyone had kept playing. Like, it wouldn't have even been an afterthought.
Lindsay Watts reporting there. Now, we did try to reach out to the guy who called the sheriff's office. We've not yet heard back.
Just because you did that, you deserve this your whole entire life. And then throwing everything beneath it away because it doesn't pertain to you. I'm sorry, but you are no. I let you talk. I let you talk. You're gonna let me talk. Oh my God. I'm sorry that this is the way it is. It is fucked up. But white people control everything, and that's not fair. And when anybody, any other minority tries to say anything about it or change it, we're complaining or we're ungrateful or all this stuff because we still have this and that. But then you say something about, oh, there's too many Latinos or there's too many.
I didn't say that.
Then you did. That's exactly.
I said I wanted to.
You said you don't want this to turn into a Latin country.
I did not say that.
Because there will be too many Latinos. You want to preserve the American culture. There is no American culture. American culture is mayonnaise. And because you are white and you are so close-minded, you refuse to accept that. You refuse to accept.
Don't tell me I'm closed-minded.
Everything you've said to me is closed-minded.
Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I'm closed-minded.
I've had conversations with people that don't agree with me, but if they at least listen and try to accept, you're not accepting the truth.
Why do I have to accept what you think is right?
You need to accept the truth,
Why?
not what I think is right, what's actually happening.
You said white people have been in control of everything. Who is the president of the United States right now?
A black man. With a white Congress, with a white Senate, with what everything else. He doesn't have the control of everything.
Go off.
Go off. The numbers are so privileged. Let's put this on the smaller spectrum.
scream.
Yes, except mad.
The Second World War, there was an uprising by the Kikuyu people who wanted their land back. The Kikuyu were herded into concentration camps and fortified villages, almost the entire population of over 1 million people. People were systematically tortured to death. They invented a new kind of pliers whose purpose was first to crush men's testicles and then to cut them off. They raped women with bayonets. They raped men. Similarly, a favourite technique was to ram sand up the rectum with a stick. Sometimes they were rolled up in barbed wire and kicked around the compound until they bled to death. Some of the British soldiers boasted about this. This is within living memory. The Colonial Secretary lied about it. The papers documenting it were burnt.
It's wrong. Crime is crime. Let's deal with it as crime. When it is a white person in South Africa, undocumented, he's called an investor. Not only a white person, including Indians and Chinese. These Guptas didn't have proper papers here. These Guptas didn't have proper papers. No one dared called them Kwerekweres. No one. But if it was my African brothers, we're going to be called Kwerekweres because they don't have papers. Self-hate. It must come to an end. If it means making the EFF lose votes for that, let it lose votes. Lose votes on principle. Not on political expediency of wanting to appeal. This country belongs to Africans in the same way Nigeria belongs to South Africans. Nigeria is South Africa. South Africa is Nigeria. We are Zimbabweans. We need to do away with this nonsensical idea that was imposed on us by colonizers, by Theresa May ancestors, that we must dislike each other. We must do away with that. Theresa May is coming here to make sure that we continue to hate each other. Look at what we are doing now. We are reclaiming our land in South Africa, saying our people must get the land inspired by our brothers in Zimbabwe. Namibia is following. Let the whole of African continent follow and reclaim our land. That's how we are going to gain our independence. And through the ownership of the continental land, we shall then have a true one South Africa. We are unable to unite because we are divided along colonial lines, Francophones and Anglophones. We need to do away with that. We need to love our African brothers in America when they are being slaughtered, in London when they are being slaughtered. They need to know that we love them here in South Africa. They remain our brothers. Love each other everywhere else where you find one another. Protect each other, Africans, because we are in the receiving end.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RP to the young brother Julius Tate Jr., the young brother Tyree King, and I wish the best for the young sister Masonique Saunders. But until we build some kind of system to where we can protect ourselves and to protect our elderly and our children, then we're going to continue to see this problem. Our children's blood being shed should be enough for us to start supporting each other. If we build our economy, and we can come up with things to build our economy quickly. Like we can put together a group of successful black businessmen and women strictly in charge of helping fund and help grow black businesses. And we all can contribute to it, whether we're rich or poor, whether you have $1 million or $1. But make sure they stay transparent and you know where the money's going. And make sure they do what they say they're going to do. Otherwise, there's a chance it's been compromised. But once you get your economy stable, then you can build your own schools and hire your own teachers and build your own curriculum and put together your own police force and an army that can defend all of it. Because at the end of the day, history has shown us they will come to try to destroy whatever we try to build. But our ancestors was forced to support each other and they became millionaires. And today we are still forced to support each other, but we suffer from the illusion of inclusion. But when we understood how this country sees us, we were able to prosper economically. Of course, they came in and destroyed it. But once we as a collective realize how America sees us, we'll be able to get on the same page again and be economically strong again. But this time when they come, we have to be ready to protect ourselves and defend whatever we build. But anyway, as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we gonna keep falling for anything.